doubt, and a sense of helplessness. In other words, Christ entered human history when the world was most in need of the blessing which God had promised from the very beginning since the fall. In this presentation, I will use the scripture readings provided by the Church for universal reflection on New Year's Day. The text of Numbers chapter 6, verse 22 to 27, Psalm 66, Galatians chapter 4, verse 4 to 7, and Luke chapter 2, verse 16 to 21. From the outset, the first scriptural selection from the book of Numbers, it takes us into the eternal plan of God for the world. It gives us an insight into the vocation of the nation of Israel in relation to other nations. Israel was meant to be a blessing to all other nations, all other people, because God had chosen them specially to be a blessing for others. The choice of Israel, therefore, was functional. It was for a purpose. The purpose which was missionary. It was not because of any military might or military power or national prestige. In fact, Israel was one of the smallest of nations. God had chosen them for a particular purpose. You will recall as far back as the call narrative of Abraham in the book of Genesis, in which the Lord said to Abraham, and I quote, "Leave your country, your family, and your father's house. Go for the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name so famous that it'll be used as a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who slight you. All the tribes of the earth shall bless themselves by you." So Abraham went as Yahweh told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 to 4. Since Abraham's time, therefore, the vocation of the people of God was confirmed. Only that the incarnation, or the Christmas story, reminds us that it was not properly fulfilled until Jesus came. It is therefore correct to assert that the human vocation is ultimately one of being a blessing for others. In two instances in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus indicated that the vocational choice of Israel was to be sufficiently formed in order to be fit for the mission towards others. For example, in Matthew chapter 10, verse 6, in the story of the commissioning of the 12, Jesus instructed thus, and I quote, "Do not make your way to Gentile territory, and do not enter any Samaritan town. Go instead to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Unquote. Then in Matthew chapter 15, verse 24, in the story of the healing of the daughter of the Canaanite woman, Jesus said, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Unquote. Israel indeed, or he needed first and foremost to be formed and taught in order to form and teach others, in order to be a blessing for others. St. Paul, in his affirmation to the church of Galatia, puts it in this way: "When the appointed time came, God sent his son born of a woman, born a subject of the law, to redeem the subjects of the law and to enable us to be adopted sons and daughters of God. The proof that you are sons is that God has sent his spirit of his sons into our hearts, the spirit that cries, 'Abba, Father.' And it is this that makes you a son. You are not a slave anymore. And if God has made you son, then he has made you heir. Galatians chapter 4, verse 4 to 7. Here, Paul is assuring all Christians of the truth of their belonging by virtue of being united in the spirit of baptism. In the new covenant, therefore, baptism is the common denominator which expresses God's total inclusiveness of others. In the Gospel of Luke, the revelation of the Christ child by the shepherds had them glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, as we have in Luke chapter 2, verse 20. What can be a greater blessing than the joy and contentment we can bring into the hearts of others, as the birth of Christ has done for all of us? It is not without reason that baptism is seen as a kind of rebirth, a spiritual rebirth. To the response, "O God, be gracious and bless us," the psalmist says, "May God give us his blessing till the ends of the earth revere him." Psalm 66, verse 8. Here God demonstrates his absolute outward-looking personality and his all-inclusive disposition with regard to the whole world. In Jesus, therefore, Christianity becomes the new Israel with the original mission, that is, to be a source of blessings to all peoples. However, the big question for us today is, are we such a blessing for others? At the incarnation, or the annunciation, the angel Gabriel affirmed the blessedness of our Blessed Lady as a grace to be shared by all of humanity. "Blessed are you among all women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." Luke chapter 1, verse 28. Mary, therefore, was a blessing par excellence by being a perfect vessel through which God would be revealed to the world in the person of Jesus Christ. In these modern times, I am always amazed by the ease and the frequency with which we utter the term, "I am blessed." Within the last decade or so, it has become part of our daily parlance. So everyone takes liberty in affirming that he or she is blessed. While I think it is a positive personal affirmation, I believe its real meaning sometimes escapes us. In fact, it should be that which best describes us as a religious people. However, we more often use it as a cliche for personal praise, wishing to tell our listeners how favored we are in the eyes of God. Some even venture to use the actual term, blessed and highly favored, and sometimes boastfully, in the attempt to separate themselves or to separate ourselves from other mortals. The truth is, brothers and sisters, blessedness is more a grace and a responsibility rather than a privilege. And I repeat, blessedness is more a grace and a responsibility rather than a privilege. Whenever it is used in the Holy Scriptures with regard to a person, it is always for the sake of others. In other words, blessedness has to do with a mission. Israel was regarded as a chosen people, not simply for herself, but so that after being formed and trained by God, she would, in her turn, be a source of blessing and inspiration to the Gentiles. Here I am reiterating the acclamation of Psalm 66. "Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. May God still give us his blessings till the ends of the earth. Revere him." Unquote. The blessedness of Our Lady was not for herself alone. It was for the sake of revealing to the world the perfect human being, Jesus Christ. Blessedness is never self-centered. It is never turned in on itself. It is a condition which is disposed, a condition which disposes the individual for others. I would dare say that salvation itself was never meant by God to be personal. By this I do not mean that God does not save individual persons. What I mean is that an entry into the mind of God, whether through the Holy Scriptures or any form of divine revelation, will reveal that God always seeks to embrace all. God's agenda is universal. In that regard, one could say that God has a Catholic mind. And I am using Catholic here in the broadest sense of the word. Even the much popularized term, accepting Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, is not Catholic. It came into common use in the advent of the Protestant Reformation, when salvation took a personal turn, when Martin Luther promoted the theology of the justification by faith. Catholic theology always appeals to the communal and universal. For God himself is communal. God is Trinitarian. He's not just a person. He's communitarian, Trinitarian. God is universal because he embraces all. And Christianity is a call to enter into the otherness of God, because our God is the God of the other. James, in his epistle, puts it succinctly when he says, anyone who brings back a sinner from his erring ways will save his soul from death and covering over many sins. James chapter 5, verse 20. James is essentially saying that if we focus a little more on the salvation of others, we will not lose our own souls. I repeat that, and that is important. If we focus a little more on the salvation of others, we will not lose our own souls. The conclusion, therefore, is salvation is always outward looking and not inward looking. In saving others, we are saving ourselves in the process. There goes the challenge of the selfishness which our present world culture promotes in its varied forms. Here goes our challenge to real Christianity. How can Christianity today become more outward looking than inward looking? Brothers and sisters, what I have tried to do here is to lay the foundation for the disposition with which we need to enter into the mind of God in its absolute blessedness. If it is true that everyone is blessed, as we so freely pronounce, the question is, how does it translate into a missionary mandate? Is the blessing we claim to have or we claim to be something only for ourselves? And so, we may ask, am I a source of blessing for others? Is my family a blessing for other families or for my nation? Are our men folk sources of blessings to their sons? Are our women folks blessings to the daughters and the women of our time? Is my community a blessing to other communities? Is my political party a blessing to the nation, or is it about itself and a particular group of followers? Is it really about nation building? Is my parish a blessing for other parishes? Are we adequately carrying out our function as a source of blessing? My brothers and sisters, today we're able to respond, or I would put in the question, are we able to respond to these questions with any clarity or any sincerity? If we aren't, we are failing like the people of the old Israel, who did not adequately meet their missionary mandate, hence the necessity for the coming of Christ. This can change today if we enter this conference with new expectations and a resolve to be and to do better. As always, we come to conferences such as today's with great and noble intentions. This is simply because we all want to do something different. And we want to be a better human person. We want to fulfill our many dreams. It means that on every occasion, every such occasion, we are faced with the same challenge of desiring change, but not necessarily having the required courage to bring it to fruition. The truth is, dear friends, as Christians, we are the new Israel, the new people of God. Therefore, we are blessed. But along with this blessing comes a responsibility to a world-changing agenda. I repeat that. Along with this blessing comes a responsibility to a world-changing agenda. As the new Israel, ours is the responsibility to be a blessing to the various facets of the world in which we live. We would really be squandering that, the little that we have on earth, if we are not sources of blessings to others. Therefore, we need to challenge ourselves more deeply at this conference. Those who are parents, ask yourselves, how best can I share the blessing of parenthood? Spouses, think of the areas that need improvement as a husband, as a wife. Neighbors, think of how you can be a better neighbor, especially to those people that you do not like too much. The same can go for the professionals, the teachers, the civil servants, the politicians, and the followers, and the followers of varied political persuasions, religious leaders, and the followers. How can we be a greater blessing after this conference? As I indicated earlier, Christianity is an invitation to enter into the otherness of God. That God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, and therefore the Christian God, is one who looks for the other. This is what Jesus did during his entire life on earth. He looked after the other. This is the significance of the parable of the Good Samaritan, which we reflected on last Sunday. The reading, which was from Luke chapter 10, verse 25 to 37, ended with the words of Jesus, "Go and do the same yourselves. Go and do the same yourselves. Go and be a good Samaritan. Go and be a blessing." And so, he has left us to bless each other into salvation. To bless each other into salvation. Those who are parents, when you go home, bless your children. Spouses, bless each other. Co-workers, do not be afraid to bless each other. I assure you, anyone who blesses receives blessings in return and in abundance. Anyone who curses instead will receive curses in return. The simple principle here is the golden rule. Do not wish unto others what you do not wish unto yourself. Let us resolve, therefore, to be a blessing to all those we encounter in our daily operations. So, the next time you utter the phrase, "I am blessed," let it not simply be for yourselves, but because you wish to be a blessing to others. When you say to your friends or neighbor, "Have a blessed day," let it be because you are genuinely wishing them well. In the meantime, let us profit from Aaron's blessing, the blessing of Numbers.